Hi, my name is Panic and here are all the new VR games. Let's go. Review roundup of last month's releases. The remake of the grandfather of VR zombie shooters, Arizona Sunshine, dropped on the 17th. Critics for this one were pretty positive around the board, resulting in a strong 77 on OpenCritic. 6 Degrees of Freedom gave the game a fret shot, 8 out of 10. Quote, Arizona Sunshine Remake does exactly what it promises to do and provides great value, great fun and great challenge in one juicily headshotable package, end quote. More critical voices lament that the game feels more like a remaster than a remake, as very little actually changed, and yeah, that's true, I can see that. Nevertheless, I played it, I loved it. I leave a link to my review in the description below. They have done it. Somehow they have done it. Camouflage's Batman Arkham Shadow did hit just right with the game's media, resulting in a strong 83 on OpenCritic. It doesn't reach the absolute heights of something like Half-Life Alyx or Asgard's Wrath 2, but still impressive. And it's not only the general games media or dedicated VR publications also loved it. Upload VR gave the game a 4.5 out of 5. Quote, Arkham Shadow feels faithful to the flat-screen Arkham games while innovating in its own way through VR-specific design. Combat remains familiar yet incredibly satisfying. Detective mode feels like a natural fit for first-person gameplay, and the strong narrative held my interest throughout. With the flat-screen games, you never stepped into the Caped Crusader's shoes, but with the VR game, I did not want to leave them. End quote. Combat is the most praised and most criticized part of the game. It's pretty button press heavy, which is not very VR, but manages to somehow recreate the combat feel of the flat games, thus staying truer to the source material. Vendetta Forever is a stylized puzzle shooter that released on the 24th for Quest on the PlayStation VR 2. Reception to that one, while not as much reviewed as the previous two, also pretty glowing. The 6 Axis gave it a 9 out of 10. Quote, Vendetta Forever is a new contender for my favorite VR game. Its high speed, intense but relatively short levels are always somewhere between very cool, very over the top and quite funny. It's a game that's in love with old school action movies and did its darndest to let you shoot your way through countless classic set pieces. End quote. We have 2 delay announcements. Starship Troopers Continuum was pushed back to a November release, the 14th for the Quest and 25th for the PSVR 2 version. Wanderer, the Fragments of Fate was delayed again. No new release date announced so far.
My story is a tale of rules rewritten by nuclear fire.
Oh, hey, Serdar!
Have you seen Yana?
Something happened.
She's in no state to be wandering out in the metro alone.
It is the year 2028, 15 years after the Great War. The remnants of civilization cling to existence in the buried subways of the Moscow metro. 5 years before the events of the first Metro games, in Awakening you play the origin story of the mysterious Khan, at that time still known as the Dr. Serdar. Metro Awakening is a stealth-focused first-person shooter with a high emphasis on immersive interactions. Vertigo Games have worked in close collaboration with the original author of the Metro books, Dmitry Glukhovsky, telling a, as they put it, very emotional and personal story. They also worked in collaboration with 4A Games, who provided assets and models of the previous Metro titles. While 4A are currently working on the 4th mainline entry to the franchise, Awakening serves as a very welcome spin-off to bridge that time. I am very excited for this one. I do love the Metro franchise, and we know that Vertigo Games have the experience to create a technically sound VR shooter. Combine that with Glukhovsky's original writing and a franchise that was always very high on immersion, this has all the ingredients for a darn good time. Metro Awakening will release on November 7th for all major VR platforms.
Sometimes we need to become the thing we fear to prevent something worse.
There are actually fewer dedicated VR racing games than you'd expect. While on PC every other racing game has an official VR mode, they are for the most part not very optimized and almost never make it to other platforms. Despite that, believe it or not, EXOcars is actually already the 3rd VR racing game by developer Zocus, but the previous title did not manage to make a big splash. They call this a, and I'm not making this up, a buggy racing experience. I mean, fair enough, you're driving buggies. With varied sceneries, ramps, obstacles and surface compositions, every track feels distinctly different. You can play solo against ghosts of other players or in multiplayer. As post-launch content, the developers promise tournaments, new game modes, challenges and seasonal events. The PC and PlayStation version will support steering wheels and pedals at launch. EXOcars is scheduled for release on November 14th for all major VR platforms.
half step, throw a hook from the right. You got a mean uppercut that'll change your underbite. Check your chip on my shoulder with veteran battle stripes.
There are a couple of VR boxing games on the market, but none was more beloved than Thrill of the Fight that entered the ring all the way back in 2016 for PCVR initially. While the first game was single player only, the sequel will have a stronger focus on PvP while still maintaining the dedication to authenticity. If you feel the unresistible urge to beat up your friends or some perfect strangers, this is your chance. Thrill of the Fight 2 will enter a multiplayer only early access phase only on the Quest on November 21st. More single player content, training and other features are planned to be added during the early access. When the game is in a more finished state, the devs plan to bring it to other platforms. The PC version is next in line, implying that the PSVR 2 version might come after that.
Tell me about this Space Bermuda Triangle.
By grit alone you shall survive. This is an upcoming sci-fi horror shooter combining frantic action combat with a linear narrative-driven campaign and a focus on cosmic dread over jump scares. The game tells an anthology story. Marooned in a bizarre unknown dimension, you'll move from derelict ship to derelict ship, with each vessel telling a different story, written by a different author. They have writers who previously worked on Dead Space, Resident Evil 8 and Doctor Who. The game is mainly inspired by Dead Space again, Resident Evil 4 and Bioshock. Dead Space? This? Dead Space? Yeah, I can see. No. Holy mother of art styles, never have I seen a bigger disconnect between a game's theme and visual style. Concept sounds really awesome, but you're making a horror game, are you not? A very colorful, cutesy looking horror game? Why? Well, anyway, By Grit alone is scheduled for a November release, no exact date yet, only for the Quest.
Another one. More of the same delusions.
That's it, a somewhat shorter video this month for a more relaxed release schedule. Next month we will be looking at games like Skydance's Behemoth and Servia's Alien Rogue Incursion. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, that helps me out tremendously, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the newest VR games. Bye.